Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with American Scouser. It's Friday, TGIFF, as we like to say. Kermit is in the house, loving being green. Oh, we got Batman going over there at John's house this morning. Ah, nice. What's going on, John?
Yeah, Friday is Batman Mug Day for me. It means that the week is finally ending. Woohoo! And people invest in Gravenberch stocks, as you can see in my header. Please do, because I feel like it's gonna, have a good potential return over the next few months. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, it was like we talked about in the pre-match. There were some interesting things to talk about in the lineup, and so let's talk about that. I know the boys talked about it a lot last night. In terms of they did kind of like the post-match as the Thursday nights podcast here.
Yeah.
Um, a mixed bag of things, right? Like we saw
Yeah.
some good stuff, we saw some stuff that made you shake your head. Give me the thing that you liked seeing the most. Let's do
Liked
the good stuff.
the good stuff. Okay. First one is number 38 over there, Ryan Gravenberch.
Okay.
Yeah, he misplaced let's get the bad out of the way. He misplaced a few passes. Sometimes he didn't look positionally as aware as he should be. The first goal the goal that we conceded, he was a bit too late in closing down. So let's get that out of the way. But in terms of like the positives, carrying the ball up, being a threat, protecting the ball in midfield, using his body, he drew a lot of fouls in terms of using his body to shield the ball. He looked really good. It looks like we have quite a player there. So I'm really excited to see, how he would be over the next few games. You couldn't have asked for a better start, I would say, warts and all.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched a whole lot of him before this. Like a few games here and there when he was in Bayern, when he played, I guess. But yeah, he looks to me out of this one game. It's kind of like an early knee-jerk reaction, I guess, but kind of like a really attack-minded genie.
Yes.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Like he definitely can pick a pass better than Genie. Like he had 2 or 3 opportunities where, just a little bit more and we would have scored like 3 or 4, like when he was carrying the ball up. And that cross for Diaz was insane. Like I didn't think he'd reach Diaz with that cross. So like, listen, we have a very offensively capable midfielder that we have here. It's so refreshing to see our midfielders like bomb forward and actually be some sort of threat nowadays. Right?
Yeah, actually it is. That's probably like the biggest change of this Liverpool compared to the Liverpool of 2-3 years ago, maybe like let's go 3-4 years ago, in terms of like what the midfield does. Having said that, though, does the midfield then struggle defensively? Because it seemed like I kind of felt bad for Elliott yesterday because he kind of got lost in the shuffle, and it felt like he was running around saying like, no, that's not how any of this works. Like it was at that commercial. Like, that's not how any of this works in midfield. He kept he was like running around because you could really tell it was more of the regular Harvey once the regular started coming in, and he was like, yes, exactly. This is where everybody's supposed to be kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ryan says less boring game than what I wanted because I think it was going to be a boring one. It's almost like new do this was coming. By the way, let's do a good plug over here and give credit where it's due, if you will. Cersei is with us as well. Good morning, sir.
What's up, Cersei? It's been a while.
I do a bad job about this overall, but if you have not head on over to the website regularly, why the hell not? You should. But Harry's article that was about this game, one of the things he did that shameless brag himself actually on Twitter. This is where I saw that as well. And I was like, that's right. He did talk about that. One thing he talked about was set pieces and their shots from distance as being their kind of like sole weapons against Liverpool. And boom, it happens. And that's how they scored the goal. And I don't know if you guys noticed, there's this dude over here. I don't know who's letting him write, but we don't deserve Elson Becker by John, our very own morning John over here. That's a good piece as well about Elson. So when you piss off John about a topic, that's when he starts writing.
Right, absolutely.
Regrets over here. But okay, let's go to the bad. Give me one thing that you saw that you were like, what the?
Stefan Bajcetic is not a right back. Like I did not expect myself to be crying out for Joey G. I was like, bring in Gomez. After my freaking rant last Wednesday, I was begging for Gomez around the 30th minute because yeah, he can't play that position. Like I don't know if you guys like if anyone in the viewership noticed the first touch he did, he got it through his back to goal and then he kicked it out of play. That was a sign of things to come. So
Yes.
like it was fine, I guess, to experiment in this kind of game. No harm done. We won it, but it's a no for me, guys. Like, Bacheta should be playing in his natural position as a DM. Right back, nah. Put in Joey G.
Yeah, it was kind of unfair on him. It's one thing to put an experienced Milner over there out
Yeah,
of his position, and he knows what to do. But at the same time, I think this is a good point too. The right side there was zero. Yeah, when Harvey
yeah,
is your veteran on that
yeah,
side, there's a lot of hurt to be done. I was actually gonna say probably disappointment wise, this is a tough one because I don't know which one I'm more disappointed in, Endo's performance or Bandok. Let's go with Endo because let's say Bandok is young. I was hoping to see more. Not that it was a terrible performance. It was very average. I mean,
yeah,
actually, like when you look, Bandok is the lowest in the sofa score thing. I don't. I mean, these ratings are kind of weird, personally, but still, I felt like there were so many times he got caught on the ball and stuff like that. And if that happened in the Premier League, you could say he's trying to get used to the pace of the game. I mean, we were
yeah,
playing against LASK, so I guess that was probably my biggest disappointment. Maybe because I was really hoping. I mean, that was the guy I told you on Wednesday and stuff that I was going to be mainly watching to see how he does. I figured, like he would be more effective. Chris says his positioning was great, but his passing and decision making left a bit to be desired. And that's what worries me because, like I say, when it happened in the Premier League, I put that on getting adjusted to the pace of the game. When it happens here, well, it's not really the pace of the game as much. I mean, if you're struggling with this pace, you're going to struggle a lot more with the Premier League. What did you make of his performance?
we're talking about Endo, yes.
Endo, yeah.
Yeah, Endo. Listen, this is the kind of game where I expected he'd put his, like he'd have his hands all over it. If that makes sense. Like, sure, everyone was kind of underwhelmed by his signing, but we're going to be giving him a chance, and this is the opposition that I expect him to be above average. Like if he struggles against, let's say, a Manchester City or an Arsenal or a Tottenham, fair enough. But no disrespect to Lask, it's Lask, and
I like how you did that. No disrespect to them, but
yeah. Like he should be doing like the bare minimum we'd expect from a defensive midfielder, and that's not having loose touches. That's not passing the ball directly to the opposition. So it's a little worrying, but I'm not worrying just yet. Like we were all discussing on the Discord yesterday, it's still 11 players who haven't played with each other at all. So maybe there is a chemistry issue there. So obviously it's a little concerning, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he'll be better next time around. What do you say, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm like, oh, this guy's not good, he's not gonna make it
Yeah,
or anything like that. I just felt maybe I had like high expectations. I kind of expected him to really solidify his spots and make us say, hey, this guy is solid. He's just not a stopgap, like he's like a good defensive midfielder.
hmm
Yes, it doesn't help when everybody around you is kind of new to what they're doing too. But he had our prime center back pairing, I guess, if you want to say, in the back.
yeah,
He was playing with just gets caught on the ball a bit too much for my liking. Defensively, I agree with what Chris was saying. I thought there were a couple of spots where he was popping in the right stuff, like the right spot to steal the ball. It's just what he does with that ball afterwards and putting into play. And I think it's a lot easier if you have and outs like the Mo and stuff like that on the right hand side, and you've had like Soboslai over there, like who's gonna pop in to grab the ball and stuff. It was a bit different yesterday. Yeah, definitely not writing him off just yet. But I guess in terms of disappointment compared to expectation, I was going to say would be like that. The pitch was brutal. I
yeah.
knew that was going to come. They watered the wings. Those white places where Dog was trying to play was almost waterlogged. They were trying to stop us attacking in those. Yeah, I mean, It was bad. The pitch was bad. There were a couple of shots where they were showing, and you could already see like it was popping up everywhere and stuff like that. I saw Klopp in the press conference saying, "I'm glad we didn't come here in December for the away game because it's only going to be worse," kind of a deal. And I
But
agree.
Chetish got his cleats caught up in.
Yes, because I thought that I'm like that wasn't no, that was like because he was complaining to the AR, and I was like, "Oh man, that was the turf getting you, the turf monster."
Yeah.
It wasn't really the guy it looked like, but. Bandok, let's talk about that a little bit. What did you make of his? Like Chris says, I think they did that on purpose, knowing his speed. I like how he gets to the end line and crosses it with ease. Like he does that move and he goes with ease. And I felt like almost like an NFL, like you do the same play once, same play twice to set up something else.
Yeah.
I felt a cut in was going to be coming because he kept doing that. I thought when one of those times he was going to cut in and totally throw the defender off. Never got the opportunity to do it afterwards. But what did you make of his performance?
Yeah, I think early on he started well. I think he caught them sleeping. Like, oh, they were kind of underestimating this kid because he's just 17. Then he freaking just breezes past his defender like once or twice to put in that cross that you said. But as the game went on, it's like the LASK defense like slowly but surely figured him out. Like as the half wore on, I mean, at least I thought he wasn't as influential as he was during the first, like, let's say 10, 15 minutes or so. So obviously it's a learning experience. Like I said, yesterday, I know you hate that phrase, Tim. Like I said yesterday, um, he would have instances where he'd kind of force it. And he had those instances, like especially towards the end of the half when we were trying to get a goal to equalize, where he had like two players in front of him, one in front of him, one behind him, and he'd still try to take them on. And that kind of comes, with the inexperience and all that. It's not the best, it's not his best game, but it's another game of like experience against opposition who aren't against rough opposition, which is kind of what he'd expect in the Premier League. So it's another game under his belt, and that's all the more beneficial for him, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, having this midfield was the hope. I think was, hey, these guys are not going to. Yeah, I mean, the moment they scored, I kind of like because they scored from a set piece too. I think if they were scoring on like during the run of play, they would probably keep going with it. But I think they knew that was their chance to get it, and they were going to get more opportunities to score like that with like set pieces and stuff like that. Like Harry was talking in his piece, that was basically what they were after. And our defending on them was kind of shaky at best. But going back to the midfield, I think my hope at least was the fact that you're signing like Gravenberch and Endo and Elliott, guys who don't normally get a chance to play, they will take this game a lot more seriously, and they wouldn't be that kind of like lull in the beginning. What happened instead, I felt like, was it backfired a little bit, where kind of like you mentioned with Van Dijk, but Darwin was doing it at times too, and Diaz was doing it at times. It almost like we were forcing it a lot more, and people like I saw way too many Liverpool players diving in between 2, 3 guys. Yes, they're crowding them, but drop the damn ball and let's keep move the ball around. Because if you have 2, 3 guys crowding you there, let's switch. Like there's an opening on the other side. Let's shift these guys over. It's almost like we didn't do that. Do you give that to people like trying to make an impression, or is it like not being used to where the other guy is going to be and things like that?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I do feel like it's also them like trying to come up with that moment that they're gonna point to Klopp where, oh, like I could do this, so that like they can say like, oh, yeah, consider me for a start in the Premier League or something. But it is to be expected. Like we are critical, but then at the end of the day, we kind of give them a pass because, again, it's 11 players who've barely, if anything, played with each other, and at the end of the day, no harm done. So, but then we still had to have Mo and Sobos like step on the pitch, which I didn't like. So, and Gravenberch got a cramp, which is unfortunate. But listen, it's a learning experience. We'll take the points, but obviously it's not a 9 out of 10 by any means, not at all.
No, I think like job done.
Yeah,
You
job done.
kind of do it with what you want in terms of getting people some experience. Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. Okay, can I? Let's go back time. Let's start the show over. The biggest disappointment to me was Costas.
Oh, right.
I mean, hit the weight room or so. I have never seen him look. I mean, he's never the strongest dude, right? But he looked like Layla's early days, where like if she was running shoulder to shoulder with somebody, eventually Layla would collapse. But over time, as she worked on it and as she got stronger and stuff, you kind of saw the opposite. The other person started to drop, or she was speed past them. But Costas yesterday, man, I was like, oh my god, it's like Layla 8 years again, 8 years old again. It's like brought flashbacks. I'm like, he was, and his thing in the past was one thing I thought he had over Robertson at times was his crossing, especially with Nunez in the middle. I was like, oh, that could be really dangerous, and we never got any of that either. Um, is he not good enough? Is it a good time to say is he not good enough? And did we
Uh,
exaggerate him in the past when he would come in and we were like, he's just as good as Robertson?
Oh well, the just as good as Robertson shots was absolute baloney. I didn't buy into that. Like if we're talking Robertson, he's a physical monster. Like he's everything you'd want from a fullback in Klopp system. Costas is a decent backup. That's what he is. I think yesterday was a bad game for him because it looks like the opponents, they're definitely more physical than technical, right? Compared to what he usually sees in the
True.
Premier League. So for guys like Costas, who's more of a, he's not as physical, he's not as fast or strong as Robertson. I felt like he'd naturally struggle, considering like from the get-go, we saw how these guys wanted to operate. That slide tackle on Gravenberch in the first minute, I knew, oh crap, these guys are into it, right?
Yeah.
So like, man, it's not a good game for Costas. I wouldn't write him off. I wouldn't say he's not good enough yet. We'll see. But he is the backup and exclusively the backup. So let's just try and remember that for all those hipsters who are trying to say, oh, let's start Costas over Robertson. Exhibit A, why Robertson, even at his age, is infinitely still better. Like, not even a contest.
And I know, Van Dijk being on that side kind of helps the cause. I thought he had a decent game
He
overall.
did.
It was, I mean, I did not want him out there as long, I guess. That's why I wanted the game kind of put away earlier so that we could probably do our substitutions a bit more without thinking. I mean, it looked like it was timed. It was the 60th minute, boom on the dot kind of a thing anyway. But I mean, maybe it was the plan to get them the 90 minutes. I figured you would be disappointed not to see Matip out there. He did make an appearance at the end there, but
I should have added that to the parlay. Joel Matip appearance could have got more money.
oh yes, by the way, so that everybody knows, the John is a rich dude now because he won his first ever bets.
$11 richer, people. We could
$11.
finally bet on sports here in New York. I did not know that. I got into the action late, and I put up my first bet yesterday for Nunez scoring and us winning. I'm $11 richer.
On that note, you don't have to risk any money to win this jersey. See how I tied it in there.
Right. 10 out of 10, man. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, so you can head over to our YouTube channel if you have not done so already. We have like a week left over here before we do our drawing. It goes till the end of this month. You can be anywhere in the world. I mentioned this on yesterday's show too, but the last winner, which I think we ran the same contest, I want to say it was July when the jersey first came out. So and our winner was from Canada. So you can be anywhere in the freaking world. Shipping is no fun internationally, but be that as it may, head on over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, and enter the drawing and win a jersey. This could be the title winning jersey, Europa winning jersey.
Yeah, let's try and get to 600 subs before the end of October, people. That would be cool.
Yes, let's do this. Yeah, actually, we've been gaining a lot, which has been nice to see. Thank you all for your support. As we plug along over here, Ryan says, going back to Dog, we shouldn't judge him too much until he's playing with the A team more. And that's another thing. Yeah, I felt, though, this was a better shot at him than, let's say, having him play with what I envisioned, which was Jota and Gakpo. I mean, he was playing with Diaz and Nunez up there, which is, as good as the front line is going to get. So
Yes.
front line wise, but I know what Ryan is saying in terms of the support staff, if you will, the midfield not being used to each other, obviously, like affects things. Nunez, too bad Anan is not here to gloat. He's having internet issues in his area, whatever his area is. But yeah, he's waiting for his internet to be fixed. We were talking about this earlier. If there's no internet, what the hell do you do these days? Because everything is going through the internet. I was telling John before we went on air, but I ran into this issue like 1 a.m. or something like that, where I got disconnected from my Call of Duty game, which is never pleasant. because I was doing well and I was kind of annoyed. But it didn't reboot, and I was like, oh, okay, then I'll just go watch some TV. You can't freaking do that either because everything
Yeah,
is.
everything's
So
streaming now,
yeah,
man.
like I was just like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to go to sleep. I'm just like, yeah, it was a very
You make
disappointing.
it sound like it's a bad thing, man. I'm gonna go to sleep.
I
Fine, I'll
didn't,
go to sleep
the
then.
sad thing is, I didn't even go to sleep right away because I usually like watch something to go to sleep.
Right.
I actually watched it on my phone because unlimited internet. T-Mobile, brought to you by.
Are we running an
So
ad now? Are we running ads now, Tim? We've grown that
we're
much.
freaking trying. We're freaking trying. Any sponsor at this point is a sponsor. We'll take it. What do you make it of Nunez's performance?
Nunez, typical Nunez performance, right? Like getting into the areas, missing big chances, but he deserved a goal and he got one, thankfully. Those two chances, any other day, is a goal. So any other day, it's a hat trick for him. So I mean, obviously, people will be critical about those misses, but I'm just glad that he's again another decent game from him, another goal for him for his confidence. So overall, I'd say around 7.5 to 8 out of 10 performance for me.
Yeah, I can go with that. I can go with that. I think he should definitely make that one. That's coming off of Van Dijk.
Yeah.
I mean, he had. It's a great save, but it's more like a reflex save that probably didn't want to even give the opportunity to Owen. He said like got lucky. Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah.
It's a great save to be fair though, because that is like just nothing but reflex to be able to save that. This is a good point. Not only the hold up play. I think here's what we've done now. And hey, when I say something nice about Nunez and his improvements, you got to figure that's huge. But when Bobby was around, I think we all knew that his thing is not really scoring; it's what he does and the setup and the interplay and stuff like that. So, we focused on that stuff and we gave him credit for that stuff, his pressing and all that.
Yeah.
Since Nunez came in, and we were like, well, he's no Bobby; he's going to be scoring goals. That's his thing. I feel like he does not get credit for all the other things that he does do. And he does do a lot of it. The last goal, Mo's goal, it's his pressure that wins the ball on the right wing and he gives it to Mo. I'm assuming he got the assist for that. So there's a lot that he does off the ball now, pressing wise, in terms of, not only like the pressing, but the hold up play. Like he attracts people, the way he runs at balls, he puts fear in defenders, and I think it kind of gets overlooked. Hassan says, first time watching and subscribe. Welcome aboard.
Hooray.
Good time to subscribe, as I was saying. So your name is thrown in there. Nunez plays like a goat. Like, is that like goats, like greatest of all time goats, or an actual goat? I don't know, but
We'll get there, Cersei. Not yet. We'll get there.
yeah, I mean, I think his strength is his unpredictability.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah. Like we as you're saying, we knew what we'd get from Firmino. Like it's one thing. Again, it's one thing to know what you'll get. It's another thing to stop. But for Darwin, you don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. Like for defenders, like obviously, if you're gonna ask a Premier League defender right now, who would they rather face? Like in terms of our front line, running at them, Jota, Gakpo, or Nunez, they would definitely not pick Nunez. For sure. That's for sure. Like imagine that absolute beast running at you, after 70 minutes. No, they wouldn't want any of that. So to your point, it's nice to see him like sort of get the timing and everything, because as you were saying in previous shows, sometimes he just presses for press's sake. Like it's not even in sync and all that. So obviously that's a product of him getting more reps in the training and like with his teammates. So like it's an improved Darwin to start. And I believe like I've sent you a graphic, to start this morning so we could talk about it. A goal contribution every 46 minutes to start the season for Darwin Nunez. And like, listen, you can't ask for anything more. Like people talking about Haaland, people talking about whoever. But Nunez is being slept on. Like it's a better start. They couldn't have asked for a better start for him, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has come a long way. I'm still not sure.
Come on, Tim. Come on.
No. Hold on, man. Let me finish the sentence. Damn it. I meant like I was just reading. Damn it.
I was like, all this praise, and then you end with, but I'm still not sure.
I am not sure the whole pressing thing. is,
Okay.
did we make him like, did we make it so that that pressing that he does occasionally, like I almost feel like Klopp and Pep are like, hey, this guy is not understanding the whole thing. Let's make him the fucking trigger. So let's tell the other guys when Nunes is running like crazy at
Yeah,
somebody,
yeah,
that means we're all pressing.
yeah.
Because it felt like he wasn't getting it before. They were like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's make him the trigger and then he can start the press and we'll go about it that way. Because I think that has been his biggest improvement. And that's one thing I was lacking. And I was, in the beginning of the season, I was not putting him in the starting 11 in my head. I was putting Gakpo because of the interplay and the lack of pressing and understanding the press. I feel like that has gone leaps and bounds compared to where it was. Hassan says Nunes needs to be clinical at front. He plays good on press as well. He will be there, hopefully. I think so. I mean, here's the thing. He's got to get credit. Any striker, I feel like, should get credit for being there in the first place.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of times where those balls get crossed and we're like, oh, there has to be somebody there in that back post and stuff like that. He is there. He is in those places where he should be. So he smells it, if you will, like a striker, like he'll be there. And honestly, the more you're there, the more you're going to score.
Yeah, I think he's developed a really good chemistry with Salah as well.
Yes.
Like whenever he and Nunez are on the game, like I expect us to score like just like that. It's just that Salah like knows where he's gonna be. Nunez knows when he's gonna time that run. So I think we have an underrated duo up front now. Where I think in a few years, like hopefully Salah stays for that to happen. But maybe in a year, it's gonna be right up there with the best in the Premier League, I would say.
Yeah, Chris says people slagging Nunez have limited knowledge in the sport for me. I know I'm sure. I'm assuming he's talking about. Yeah. No. I mean, I think what happens when players like Nunez, and I think it's probably the same as with Holland, right? If you're not following the team, if you're not watching the game, you don't see his impact on the game. I mean, you can't see. When you just watch highlights, you can't see the fear he's putting in defenders. Like no pass is too long, it feels like, because he freaking tracks it down and he has so much pace that even a long ball that was misplaced or just a clearance that you would think, the center back of the other team is going to control, turn around, or the goalie is going to come. It just becomes more hectic because he's running like
his first goal against Newcastle was like that. Like when Botman like miscontrolled it. That's because Nunez was up in his grill, man.
Yeah,
that's the pressure that we're talking about. It's a different dynamic in terms of like player that we had compared to like Firmino or Jota. Like Nunez.
And you don't see that in the highlights. So I think what happens is like when a player like a Nunez comes in, he's like, he's striker, goal scorer. So what is he doing? So people just look at stats or they look at, what he did, like how many shots, how many goals and stuff like that, than just looking at the stats as opposed to the game. I think after a while, like everybody knew that's not what you were looking. Well, most people knew. There were still people saying like he doesn't score enough goals and stuff. For Bobby, for example, I don't think we knew not to just look at the stats and the score sheets to know how Bobby played. We knew it had nothing to do with it. So I think it's part of the system, perhaps. But I think it's the same thing with Nunez. Like if you're, I don't know, a Chelsea fan or something, and if you want to slag off Nunez, you watch the highlights, you miss that goal that he missed. He's like, oh, you only scored from a penalty at the end. And then you call the day and you kind of slag off Nunez. But you don't see the assist, you don't see the pressure, you don't see the chaos he causes and stuff like that. So
let me ask you, Tim, all this praise, is Nunez your number one in the middle now?
I think so, yes. Just because of this, like what Chris is saying, like his mobility is a problem for our defense, his pace, his strength. I think he just causes stuff out of nowhere. Like even when there's a lull, there are some games where you're like, where the hell is the goal going to come from? Like we're not able to create anything.
Yeah.
He just does something, or he's in an area where it's like he rattles the other team. If they're like, okay, we got this, we're going to stop these guys, he rattles defenses. And Chris says it took us a while to get to that point. I mean, shit, some people never got to that point. Some people are still not at that point, Chris. I mean, like they never understood what Bobby was doing. I think
Suarez as well
came in as Nunez came in as a goal scorer. And I think that's like the biggest difference. We didn't bring him and say he's going to be just like Bobby. Heck, we saw him and he was like, we said, this is a total different type of player. Like, forget Bobby. This is totally different type of player. But now we're seeing he might be able to bring some of those qualities of Bobby. Not maybe the interplay as much, but his physicality, his pace and stuff obviously is a lot superior to Bobby. So instead of the interplay, he brings that over. I think he is my number one right now. So Ryan says Nunes is number one, but I still love him coming in at 60th minute when defenders are tired. What do you think? Do you
Either
start
or.
him? Like against West Ham, I get the feeling that we kind of already played our hand because Jota and Gakpo never came in.
Yeah.
But what do you see, for example, in a game that we have to win? Let's say a cup semifinal, you have to start your best 11.
In a cup semi?
Cup semi, cup final, you name it. It's a must-win game.
Oh,
Who
definitely start Nunes. Definitely start Nunes because I feel like with both teams trying to win, there's gonna be some instances where the game will be more open, and in terms of an open game, like that's where Nunes is at his best. If you got Nunes and Salah starting in an open game, we score at least one goal, that's for sure. So Nunes, yeah.
See, Chris says Diaz, Nunez, Mo. Man, that's what I thought. That's why I thought Jota and Gakpo.
I want that
they
lineup.
They did not even come in, which is really weird. It's like they did not even come in off the bench. I figured maybe they would get like the 15, 20-minute run or something like that. Obviously, the way the game unfolded kind of stops that too. But so Nunez, you're saying for sure up top. How about if a team is sitting back, which we assume West Ham will do? West Ham likes to sit back and then kind of counter with Bowen and Antonio and stuff like that, which Bowen has a virus. So is a doubt, whatever that means. Usually they give some kind of thing and just like say, tap him on the butt and say, go back and do it. So
watch him start.
We'll give you more, so what do you make of, like on a game like that? Do you start Nunez or do you start Gakpo or Jota in the middle?
Well, if we're talking about merit, I think he deserves another start. Like, I've been impressed in terms of what I've seen from Nunez over the last few games. So I think he would deserve a start in this big game and then maybe rest him for the cup. I believe our next game after West Ham is League Cup against Leicester.
Leicester, right?
Yeah. So I would start him, but obviously Klopp might think differently. I wouldn't be opposed to him coming off the bench too and maybe starting Gakpo because we are going to face like a bank of 10 against West Ham. So Gakpo's slick movement, and his passing is going to be critical there. But it's tough for me because I really like Gakpo too. But then Nunez, in terms of, like I said, in terms of merit, he's been really good to start. So as Kazi said way back when, how are we, like, we have to reward good play. I feel like he should start, honestly.
But then he's just played on Thursday, and this is the guy coming back from
he's young, Tim.
International thing with a muscle issue.
He's
hey
young.
Man, I don't care, young or not. Muscles are muscles. So and that's, I guess, like my concern, and like Chris, that's the lineup I want to see up top too. But do you think what we saw yesterday kind of spells out what we're going to see on Sunday against West Ham?
Yeah.
Gakpo and Jota, because that's kind of scary. But
yeah, that's kind of scary. Like, the only pace we got is Mo, and obviously West Ham are going to double or triple up on him, and that leaves, the left side, because Jota is not the fastest player, so you could kind of have players stand off him, right, and be all right. So I hope not, right? I hope not. But then knowing Klopp, knowing how he, works, it's probably a sign. It's probably going to be Jota, Gakpo, and Mo. I hope we're wrong, honestly.
Yeah, I like this actually. Hassan says Diaz, Gakpo, Salah, bring Nunes at the hour mark. I can sign up for this.
Yes.
I'm all for it. Because it still gets Nunes in, but it doesn't put Nunes back to back to back. And then come Wednesday against Leicester, you can probably still do Gakpo and Jota or something like that. Diaz, I feel like, I don't know what you guys think, but I feel like and Ryan says a tired defender seeing a fully rested Nunez running full speed should equal late goals. I feel like Diaz is a lot more crucial for me than Nunez starting, because I feel like when we have speed threat on both sides, whoever is in the middle, their life is a lot easier.
Yeah. It's like I said, like, people aren't gonna double or triple up on Mo. Because, if, for example, Jota is there on the left, someone could just stand off him. And with Diaz, you can't do that. Because, like, with Diaz, we're talking about unpredictability. right? And Chris saying Szoboszlai and Ward-Prowse, yeah, that is going to be interesting. But Diaz, you're talking about unpredictability on Nunez. Diaz is as well. When he gets the ball, you don't know what's going to happen. Either he
Yeah.
loses it or he breezes past three players. And you know what? It's almost what happens is he breezes past the players more often than not. He's just so good, and it's so much like in terms of like striking fear. Nunez does that, but Diaz does that too. So I hope he starts as well. Granted, he played a full 90 as well, right? Diaz.
So that's what I was going to tell you guys.
Yeah.
Is Ward-Prowse just played a full 90 in yesterday's game. I mean, they were home. They played after us, but they were home.
Did they
But
win?
he played a full 90. Paqueta played 86 minutes. I was kind of shocked to see that, to be honest with you. Out of their two players, those guys being there. I mean, it was mostly a backup squad, Crespel, Ogbonna, and stuff like that. But I mean, out of the starters, they played the new kid, Kudus from Ajax, right? And he actually scored a goal. I didn't watch the highlights or anything, but Ward-Prowse did play full 90, and Paqueta played 86, so you can count that as a 90 pretty much as well. So that kind of makes it interesting in terms of what they're going to have. I don't know about that. I almost felt like no Trent yesterday, even off the bench, says we're going to play it safe, and you do not see Trent until maybe the last 15, 20 minutes of the Leicester City game, so he can play against Spurs.
Yeah,
right?
Spurs.
Yeah, and which is a game that I would like him to be at, definitely. So what do you think? Let's do Sunday prediction game. Let's start this.
I don't think Trent plays. I feel like this game is. It'll be perfect for him. It'll be perfect for him because we need his like deliveries from set pieces from the wing to break down West Ham. But I don't think Klopp thinks he's fit enough yet. And if he was, I think we would have seen him yesterday, maybe coming in 10 minutes or something just to get some fitness in. So Joey G at right back, I don't know what to feel about that. But in terms of the back line, this is probably going to be it with Trent being replaced by Joey G. So I wouldn't mind that, honestly. I mean, as much as I slate on Joey G, he's a better defender than Trent at right back. So at least we have some cover there, right? Considering West Ham are a very dangerous counter-attacking team. So I'm not completely against that. What I'm worried about is, though, if we concede first, which we've always been doing to start.
That goes without saying, man.
Right. So obviously West Ham are going to be tough to break down. We need someone like Trent. So yeah, it's tough, but Joey G starts.
Can we just make Joey G but have him a right back and not try to invert him as much, because he kind of gets lost in that.
Yeah,
it feels for a second like, oh, this is just like being a center back pushing up, and then it just gets off. I actually like Gomez on right back. I thought he does well whenever he comes in. I know he struggled against Neto last week, but I mean, to be fair, he didn't really have a lot of backup on that side, and I mean, kind of like everybody was shit that first half, so it's kind of hard to put that on Gomez. Midfield, the same midfield: Mac, Szoboszlai, Jones.
Mac, Szoboszlai. Kind of want Gravenberch to start, but yes,
Mac not with that cramp. I'm assuming that automatically rules him out as well.
Yeah, I like I said, I'm investing heavily on Gravenberch.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. The gambling is on.
So Mac, Szoboszlai, and Jones. Yeah, I feel Mac, please don't.
And I'm actually expecting a really good performance from McGrath.
Right. Front line. I hate to say it, man. Salah, Gakpo, Jota.
Yes, I think we're in agreement. Not that I want to see that, but I think that's what we see. And we're kind of totally basing that on this. At the same time, if we had to risk somebody, I would say Diaz and put him on the left to have the speed, and then have Nunez, like Hassan was saying earlier, and then bring Nunez off the bench in the 60th minutes. Ryan says prediction: Maguire man of the match. I really expect him to bounce back in a big way. He seems that kind of dude, and he knows what went wrong, and he knows he's not at fault. But you got to figure he has to kind of show it on the field. Chris says, "Can we talk about Brighton losing at home to AEK? Is it AEK? Back home we say AEK, but I don't know. But either way, with a pretty much full squad. That's the game I actually watched yesterday. Normally, I do the whole Golazo thing on the Champions League days as I work, because at least there's only 6 games or something like that. Yesterday, when it's like Europe, and it's just a mayhem. It becomes just like nothing but goal highlights, which can be fun, but you never get a feel of the game. I did
Mhm.
watch the Brighton game because it was an exciting game. One thing I noticed is like that Athens team can counter. It was ridiculous how well they were countering. And it's almost does it is it like the pressure of like European game, first European game, we gotta win this because it felt like Brighton was rushing things more than they normally do.
Yeah, well, I didn't watch the game, but then I could say with confidence that teams entering Europe for the first time, it tends to complicate things for them. Like you said that they started with their full squad. What are they going to put up in the weekend is the question now. Are they
Yeah,
going to put it the same guys? If they do, those guys have been run ragged trying to win the game yesterday. So it's going to be really interesting to see. It's not easy going into Europe. Like, okay, they looked really good last year, but now their best players are going to be stretched, so it's going to be interesting if you're a Brighton fan. In terms of prioritization, I don't know. Like these teams tend to prioritize Europe more than the league. Like with West Ham last year when they won the Conference League, they weren't good. They were pretty much lower half of the table, but they did enough to win the Conference League. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Brighton's going to be approaching their midweek Europa League game and their Premier League game, because it's never easy. It's
I
never
think the
easy.
draws make it difficult. I mean,
Yes.
because it changes everything. I think that's for the same thing for us as well, where if you have easy games, like I know, for example, Fenerbahce literally is in a cake group. And yesterday they played nothing but backups and won at home 3-1 against a team from Denmark. And they played nothing but backups. Like there was not, I think the goalie was the only guy from like the A team. Everybody else was backups and they won easily. Um, well, actually, you know what? Fred was out there. Good old Fred from United is Fenerbahce now, so he was out there. So when you have that, you can kind of like get those guys minutes, kind of like we did yesterday. But that was in a grander scheme. We did it like a halfway. We can get Endo out there, Gravenberg out there, Bandok out there, and you can get those guys games. But you look at especially Newcastle and Brighton, they are in really, really tough groups where every game is tricky. I mean, on paper, this was probably Brighton's easiest game, having the Athens team at home, because playing against like Turkish teams, Greek teams away, especially if you've never been in Europe. I don't think Milner is gonna walk into the stadium in Athens gonna be like shake his legs, but Matsuma might. You know what I mean? Like because it's a very intimidating atmosphere when you go away to some of these teams and their stadiums over there, because this is a big thing for them being in Europe as it is for Brighton. So I really do think it's going to affect how they do overall in the league. Because not only that, I think it changes, more importantly, it changes things for the fans.
Yeah.
Like the fans start looking at the game ahead on Wednesday or Thursday or whatever, and not focus as much on the game or see the importance or give the support. Like they're like, okay, we won this, but what are we gonna do on Thursday, kind of a thing. It just becomes that, and teams do get derailed. Chris says, I think Brighton are falling into the trap we fall into with our style of football. When we're clicking on some playable, when it's not quite clicking, so that can be pulled apart. A little bit of that. A little bit of that. I think it's because not only because of their style, I think it's that like it requires patience, the way they play as well. I mean, you see them play against United, where they can lull United. I mean, to the point where it's like United initially, like United players were chasing the ball. They were like, "Oh fuck this, we're never getting there." So after 30 passes, and then they suddenly say like, "Okay, let's go," and then they attack to a team that's like in a lull. Well, when you're chasing a game, I don't think Brighton is ever in a good situation to be chasing a game.
And the onus is on them. I feel, Tim, as well. Like
Yeah,
against the big teams, they ripped apart Newcastle. They ripped apart United. The onus was on United. The onus was on Newcastle. So
yeah,
Brighton can like stay in their shape and play their good build up play, counter attacking football. Like yesterday, I feel like I didn't watch the game, but I can sense a trend where they were playing at home, right? So the onus was definitely on them to take it to the team. So they kind of got, I don't want to say it like it sounds corny, but they kind of got brightened, right? Like they kind of got brightened by their
yeah.
opposition in the Europa League. So it's obviously something that they're going to have to adjust to.
Yeah, I mean the Greek team was more than content in just sitting back and countering, and they had the players for it. To be fair,
Yeah.
um, they had the players to be able to counter like that. Whereas yes, their style is a lot more tiki taka, where they're gonna kind of lull you, kind of almost semi bore you with some what looks like meaningless passes, but in the background there's a ton of people moving around creating space, and then boom, they suddenly strike you. Chris says Turkish stadiums are crazy. Yes, they can be very. It's a totally different atmosphere. I think a lot of this was a lot worse in the past. It's still there, but it becomes a lot more of a nation thing.
Mhm.
I think it's a lot less now because it's a more bit more clubs. In the past, if you were a Fenerbahce fan, you still rooted for Galatasaray in Europe. Not as much anymore, but it becomes a huge. These European games becomes where it's very hard to turn the stadium against the team.
Mhm.
Whereas if they play like a local league game and they're not performing well, they're down 1-0 and stuff, you hear the and the stuff like that when the bad passes happen. Not in a game where they're playing another European team and it goes crazy. I remember, was it like Neville talking about it when they came to a Fenerbahce game? I don't think it was kind of like a rubber match for them, I think, for the most part, but it wasn't for Fenerbahce. And I think Fenerbahce beat him like 3-0 or something like that, but Tuncay was playing at the time. And I remember him saying, like, they do this thing when doing kickoff where everybody jumps up and down. And so it's like the first couple of minutes. I remember him like talking about in an interview saying, like, it was impossible to play because you feel the ground is shaking under you in the stadium. And these are guys been in stadiums. Like I say, Milner has been in ridiculous stadiums, right? He's been in Madrid and he's been in here, like he's been all over the place. He's been in Munich and stuff like that. But other players like in Brighton and some in Newcastle that have never played in Europe, this is a first time experience, and that can really be challenging. So that's going to be interesting to see. And like I say, this was for Brighton their easiest game on paper. I thought Newcastle did well, but every week it's going to be a battle for them, and you're not going to be able to rotate. I think that's the biggest thing that hurts. I almost felt like, Chris is saying they started their lineup. I almost felt like they wanted to get the 3 points, the group, start putting the group away so they can kind of start rotating towards the end. This basically backfired. Now they really can rotate because you're going to go to France. I think Ajax is in their group. So you're going to go to like play some tough teams. So now you can't rotate at all because you started in the hole. So it was definitely a fun game to watch. Brighton is always fun to watch. They just play a good football. But I'll be honest, I was impressed with how Athens was countering. It was just ridiculous how well they countered. Let's go back to our boys. Prediction time. We kind of predicted it. Hassan said, I agree with you guys. I would love to have Diaz again, probably to bring Jota and Nunez early in second half. I like I say, if I wanted to risk one guy after playing a lot of minutes, it would be Diaz. Just because I think he's needed more than Nunez, because Nunez can be just as effective coming in the 60th and cause havoc.
Yeah.
Whereas I think we need Diaz from the start. So it'll be interesting to see how we get up there. We'll be doing a pre-match, crack of dawn, not as bad as last week, but we'll be on live in the pre-match right before the show, right after basically the lineup comes out to talk about the lineup and everything. Mateusz, the Polish Prince, will be hosting that insulting guest as they join. He was calling me fat last week without saying it. But prediction time. West Ham.
2-1. Heart attack 2-1.
Heart attack 2-1. Damn
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it's not going to be an easy one. I'll go with my standard issue 3-1. I just would like to not to be the one to concede first.
We will.
I'm even okay with 2-0, then 2-1, and then wake up, put the 3-1 away, and go. But it's going to be it's a challenge. I feel like it's a challenge. It's interesting that they played on Thursday too. I think that kind of helps us in some ways. I feel like we are definitely deeper. I mean, if you can't start Bowen, for example, because of a virus or whatever, and then you just had Paqueta and Ward-Prowse play 90 minutes, I think that helps our cause.
Hopefully it's like an Aston Villa situation where we're thinking about it too much and then it's
yes, I will love that. I am all for that. I am all for that. West Ham have been playing well, but I think we'll hammer them 4-1. I like what you did there.
Yeah,
That's
perfect.
That's good stuff. That's broadcasting right there, baby. Okay, so we'll go with those. So 2-1, 3-1. Sir Chris has like a 4-1 going. I like, let's get another 3 points. Let's get this roll going. I expect Dan on Wednesday to do something similar to what we did yesterday and stuff like that. So games are coming thick and fast, man. So these are like the fun times. Let's hope no injuries. Keep rolling, keep rotating, and keep getting the wins. I mean, we're despite kind of stumbling through some of these, we're constantly winning.
Yeah.
We're kind of maybe being a little spoiled and expecting winning in style or something like that. But either way, we're winning, just not playing, I think, as well as we should. But as long as you're winning, I don't think it matters. Eventually, things will start clicking with this new midfield and everything. So, thanks a lot for joining, as always, and subscribing. Welcome to the gang. If you have not already, head on over there right now to the YouTube channel. If you're following us on Facebook, if you're watching us on Facebook, jump over to the YouTube side to subscribe over there. And then we will be back on Sunday, right before the game, to talk about that. Serzi says, can we please have a clean sheet? Sounds like a personal issue, so I'm not going to go there. But yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Winning and not being 100% is what wins the league. Yes, exactly. I agree with that. So let's win. I don't care how, and I don't care how dirty the sheets will be. Let's just get to win and move on. But you guys have an excellent Friday and a Saturday. We'll see you guys Sunday.